Next was the Mixed Magin Corps. How about we leave this to Benimaru? I recommend Rigor Dono, Benimaru proposed. Rigor, huh? He certainly had experience in leading the security force, and his strength was over rank A. But on the other hand, he was already Rigor's assistant, so I suspected that he couldn't afford to be a corps commander. If at all possible, I would like to win the war by relying solely on our standing army. Yet at this time, it was unknown just how many troops the Empire had assembled. We had sent people on reconnaissance missions, but we failed to obtain any information from beyond their borders. Nevertheless, based on the bits of information gleaned from their military exercises and other events, we could estimate that at least 300,000 troops would be mobilized. If we were unlucky, that number might rise to over 1 million. In light of this, we couldn't afford to keep the Mixed Magin Corps in reserve. I wasn't exactly dissatisfied with the idea of Rigor in command, but I was worried. No matter how you looked at it, sending in an unorganized force with barely any preparation was dangerous. I think I'd rather leave this to Benimaru. As for this Mixed Magin Corps, let's call it the Red Numbers from now on. Select a couple members of Kurenai and have them each lead battalions of 1,000 soldiers. This will be the 4th Corps, and Benimaru, you will be the corps commander and take direct command. It's red because this corps screams danger, get it? It's been a while since I've cracked a satisfying dad joke. Yeah. Geez, I can already hear crickets. I should probably keep that one to myself. Despite throwing around stupid quips in my head, I somehow kept a straight face. Thankfully, nobody noticed, and the meeting went on smoothly. I understand. If that's the case, please leave it to me. Benimaru apparently anticipated this outcome and assented without a hint of surprise. Since he had the unique skill Generalissimo under his belt, he could easily compensate for the unit's lack of training. He was the perfect choice to handle such a random assortment of troops. Thus, in addition to commanding the entire armed forces, Benimaru also placed the Red Numbers under his direct command. Lastly, we had the Volunteer Corps. What are we going to do about the Volunteer Corps? I inquired. That's the problem, Benimaru replied with a furrowed brow. The Volunteer Corps consisted largely of humans. Benimaru was evidently worried that appointing a monster as the commander of such a unit might stir up unnecessary discontent. That's true, I agreed. If word gets out that humans can't get ahead in a monster country, our reputation is going to be damaged. Anyone who complains about such things is a weakling and a failure. We can't expect them to make it big anyway, so there's no need to worry about it. No, Sean. I mean, that's not completely wrong, but it'd be easy for people to believe that if they don't know us. I see. Humans are difficult beings. Sean remained skeptical, but our image-building strategy was important. It'd be ridiculous if we were called discriminatory over this kind of thing, so I thought we needed to give it some serious thought. But is there truly no one else more suitable? Diablo asked. He was right, and that's why Benimaru was worried. You weren't wrong, I said. They're volunteers, after all, so they're an unplanned addition, as far as I'm concerned. Yet, not taking advantage of their offer would be a waste. That's right. I genuinely appreciated the sincerity of those who volunteered, and I didn't want to let it go to waste. However, if we wanted to make good use of it, we needed a capable commander. These guys were even more of a mess than the Mixed Magin Corps, which was now known as the Red Numbers. I couldn't imagine anyone other than Benimaru bringing them all together. Well, I don't know what to do. What about Gerard, who is under Sally's care? Benimaru probed. Not possible. We took him in as part of an undisclosed deal with the Kingdom of Ingratia, and I doubt he wants to be seen in public, I admitted. I haven't heard what kind of deal Testarossa made, but I don't think it's a good idea to let Gerard play an active role in the public eye. Apparently, he was even labeled as a traitor to humanity, so they had to make an example out of him, by publicly declaring his death. Well, I didn't have any obligation to protect him, I didn't want to force him to play an active role, either. He would be more than competent, but he isn't a realistic option. Benimaru made a case for him, but he wasn't really pushing for it. He quickly gave up on him and started thinking about other candidates. Yet the problem remained: we needed a human as the commander. Names were proposed one after another, but nobody seemed to fit the bill. How about asking the Holy Knight Order for help? Xian suddenly suggested. Benimaru and I glanced at each other, then stared at Xian. We can't do that, can we? No, that's not possible was what I tried to say, but Xian brought up a name and cut me off. Then, how about Masayuki Dono? Masayuki, eh? It was as if a light bulb went off in my head. That's it. That was impressive, Xian. Benimaru and I shouted at the same time. At that moment, we locked in Masayuki as the commander of the Volunteer Corps. Although the decision to appoint him was made without his approval, it was a wonderful choice that everyone could agree on. Masayuki was the only person that remained skeptical. Why should I? When I revealed the news to him, he had his head in his hands. But it can't be helped, right? Sad as it may be, war was looming over us. His opinion didn't matter. Although that might be contrary to my earlier stance, there was no need to be concerned about Masayuki, because if we left it to him, then everything would eventually turn out perfectly fine on its own. He was a good friend to have in troubling times like these. As for me, Masayuki began, I've gotten pretty good at using my unique skill Chosen One. I don't feel like I'm being praised for everything I do anymore, like I used to. But now, I can't use it even when I try, so don't expect too much, okay? I knew that he was lying, of course, and that he was making excuses so he could try to escape. After all, his popularity hadn't diminished one bit, and he remained as influential as ever. Don't you want to show Kenya and the others how cool you are? I prodded. That. If you go along with this, I'll let you off the hook for teaching the kids questionable stuff and gaining their respect. Don't worry, you can do it. But. No buts. Didn't I help you with your fight against Gozer? Masayuki and his team had already passed the 50th floor. During that time, I had been secretly helping him along by using my avatar to weaken Gozer, the floor's guardian. Thank you for your help back then, he mumbled. You understand, don't you? Yes. After a little bit of coaxing, coupled with a few sprinkles of threats, he eventually came around to my idea and sealed the deal. Yes, I understand. I owe you a great deal, Rimuru-san, and I'd like to repay a bit of that debt at times like these. Although he was reluctant to do so, Masayuki agreed to be the corps commander. There were no complaints from the volunteers. Rather, I heard them shouting stuff like, "We did it," and "Victory is ours," all in a state of euphoria. No matter how dour Masayuki looked, he couldn't change the outcome now. This is how I thought things would end up. He said he mastered the unique skill Chosen One, so what gives? As I'd suspected, it turned out that Masayuki had lied about mastering his skill. Or maybe this had nothing to do with his skill, and it was simply his natural luck. That'd be even more surprising. Leon, for instance, was the polar opposite of Masayuki. Regardless of what he did, it always came off in a bad light. He'd been that way since his early days as a hero, and I suppose it wasn't easy changing one's natural disposition. Well, I'm sorry that I made this decision for you, but please shine brightly as the beacon of hope to inspire everyone. I cheered, trying to console him. Thus, the 20,000 members of the volunteer corps were led by Masayuki, and fell under the banner of a hero. In the revised organizational structure, the right wing had 52,000, while the left wing had 50,000. Benimaru was listed at the top. Beneath him were the various corps commanders. In total, we had more than 100,000 troops, but even so, it was up in the air whether they could hold a candle to the Imperial army. But there was no need to panic. Our preparations were progressing steadily. As a reserve force, there were 150,000 soldiers in the Western Reserve. Plus, each country also reported that they were making preparations to ready reinforcements from among their own knights. An allied Western force would be organized to be the very last line of defense. The number of this army would probably come out to no less than 200,000, and we would be relying on them if the worst comes to pass. We were scraping together as many mercenaries and aid from each country as possible. It was a lot or pitifully little, depending on how you looked at it. I heard the Testarossa had threatened them at the council meeting, which was why they were cooperating. Either way, if we lose, then they would undeniably be the next targets, so they had to lend their support. Well, either way those forces would remain in place until our defeat became evident. We had the home field advantage. We also had Vildora's presence nearby and a cooperation of demon lords like Luminous and Leon. Milim also promised to help us out. Carrion said that his Beastmaster's warrior alliance would always be prepared to deploy. And as my personal trump card, the black numbers under Diablo were at the ready. Since I gave Benimaru command of the entire army, ostensibly I wasn't directly in control of a single unit. That was how we ultimately decided things, but it wasn't the whole truth. The black numbers would only accept orders from Diablo and the demonist trio, who were his subordinates. It was a unit completely independent of Benimaru's command. This was the full picture. We did not take into account how Yuki would act. War, huh? I muttered quietly in my room. Did the Empire really want to annex the Western nations? Dee had mentioned the word game. There seemed to be some kind of connection, and perhaps the Empire had some disturbing ulterior motive. But even if that were the case, I don't care who comes. If they try to mess with our paradise, we'll crush them. This was what I genuinely felt from the very depths of my heart. I'm not going to make the same mistake again. I am a demon lord. I couldn't afford to misjudge what my priorities truly were. Meanwhile, within the Eastern Empire, preparations for the war were moving smoothly forward, just like in Tempest. Or rather, the Empire's investment in the matter was orders of magnitude greater in scale and time, so immense that the two could not even begin to compare. They had planned meticulously for a long time, all for a major offensive. Soon enough, the Empire was about to awake from its slumber. The days before their ferocious advance steadily counted down.